Hi, everyone. My name's Joanne Borlase. I'm an evolutionary astrologer, and I'm here with Sue Hilliard and Robin Grabfelder in the EA meeting room. I'm doing my part three presentation on phases and aspects through the apple tree's life cycle. So I'm just going to jump right in, and I'm going to share my screen now. There we go. I hope you can see this
Yep,
image here.
we're good.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Um, so I'm just going to begin now. Of course, we're all familiar with this image, the Adam and Eve story and the tree of life or the garden of evil. And so this is also about that legend, the fall of humanity and the introduction of sin into the world. And the point here is that you cannot rise to higher states of consciousness unless you submit to your desires. And it's knowing that difference between good and evil. And that's what all these experiences are about. And I don't know if you ever saw the movie called What Lies Beneath with Michelle Pfeiffer, who plays Claire. She's wife to Norman, played by Harrison Ford. And there's this scene where Norman gets home from work and he's looking for Claire, and there's something to eat he sees in the fridge. And as soon as he closes the fridge door, he's got an apple in his hand, and suddenly Claire appears. And she's invoked the spirit of the woman that Norman had this affair with. And this person he had the affair with is now dead. And so Claire takes the apple right out of his hand and she bites into it with passion and lust. And I find this scene having a lot of Scorpio, Taurus, and also Libra, Aries energies going on. It's just a very powerful scene. It also shows the depths of desire of something so sinful and irresistible in a partnership, such as an affair or a betrayal, that reaches the highest layers of truth. And that moment when these layers are exposed, you can see such a lethal transformation in the character Claire's face, as she's staring at her vision as well. Like as the scene moves on, she stares at this vision of herself that's in the past. It's like a program replaying itself, and standing in the doorway of her house in the pouring rain, like she's Venus in Pluto's underworld. And it's almost like you're looking too at this Claire character, like she's Eve and Lilith into one. And so I just think that the intensity of the scene is quite fantastic and bewitching. Um, so there's all these layers too that um, show these penetrating desires between Claire and Norman when they're, looking at each other. And it's just all quite scorpionic. And of course, the apple here is the symbol, which I'm referring to, and representing the transformation that by both of them, because he shoved the apple, I think, in his mouth at one point to take a bite as well. And so it's both of them having eaten this apple, and there's all these metamorphic processes that are taking place, through the whole scene. And following the scene, there's this powerful, intense confrontation that occurs between the two of them. They're fighting and arguing, and um, where enlightenment comes in, and then there's even more illumination, um, where more truths are surfacing, and there's this elimination of all the lies of the past. So I just thought that this movie, with this Adam and Eve image is quite powerful, along with the apple and then the processes associated. And another reason why I brought up this Adam and Eve story is that we're going to be talking today about the seventh house archetype and just, all the processes in the opposition, like when we start to get into the aspects and then and also the phases. So, moving on, this is the next image of the Garden of Hesperides. And again, this is just that reflection of Adam and Eve's story. But here is where the fruit of Eden, it was unnamed and it took on influence under this story, representing the golden apples. And again, highlighting that alchemical transformation into gold. Any kind of transformation is gold. So I just wanted to touch on that as well. And then now going into the um, third quadrant here, being fall and autumn. This is the full phase. So we're going to have two aspects in this phase, which is the opposition and the inconjunct or the quincunx. And then in the disseminating phase, we're going to have this sesquisquadrate and the um, full phase trine, or sorry, not the disseminating trine, which is the start of Sagittarius. And here, just looking at the moon phases as well, that also reflect these phases. We've got the full phase moon here, and this is the disseminating phase. So going into the following slide here, we've got fall and autumn, and this is the Libra archetype. And also, I'm discussing the opposition here. This is a gateway, very transitional. And the key word is the awareness and manifestation. So it's a time of give and take in nature. There's a dynamic tension between the trees and the apples of hanging on and letting go. So opposing forces with the gravitational pull, and also, there's this hormone called ethylene production, which peaks and it forms this abscission layer in the stem, which is like a cutting off or splitting, a separating from the tree. And it causes the apples to fall. And this is around harvest time beginning. Um, Also, in this phase, there's extremism going on. So you can see in um, this apple tree here, um, the apple, it's fully round and ripe, and the tree even itself is fully outward. It's done its thing, and or almost done its thing, and so there's this fullness happening as well. So this is the opposition, and you can see it very well going on in nature. Well, moving on to the next one. So this is the glyph, the Libra glyph, and we've got two of them. We have the scales here, and then we also have the sun either over here, we've got it rising. There's like a glow rising in the sky, and then here we see the sun is setting. And so you can see just looking at, the glyphs in comparison to nature, you can see the reflection very well happening. And then also here with, the scales, and then you've got the apples. No, not all apples sit at the right position in a tree. There's, differing levels happening. And then we've got a full-grown apple tree here. And you can also see it's this this apple tree is kind of asymmetrical. It's not even on both sides. Some of the branches are dipping slightly lower. And so with the scale that you're looking at here, this represents the weighing of matter. And the glyph of the sun is, again, the rising or setting over the horizon, as in the ascendant and the descendant axis. It also symbolizes the in-between states of consciousness, so that we've got like objective consciousness that's rising and the subjective consciousness that is setting or below the horizon. So Libra also has this ability to see two sides. So there's always that duality again going on, the as above, so below. And looking at the stars too, because these glyphs come from the constellations in the sky, in the universe. So with the two stars, forgive me if I don't say this right, but Zubanesh Kamali, which is the northern claw, and then there's Zubin al Ganubi, which is the southern claw. And it represents the trays of the scales, one being slightly higher than the other. And um, also the one in the southern is balanced almost right on the ecliptic. So there's this imbalance you're seeing going on. It's not a uh, perfect scale of balancing. And the imbalance is reflective in nature, and it signifies the concept of balance being the governing principle in all of creation. So the fact that they're not sitting equally demonstrates the constant motion and force of movement in the universe and as in nature as well. And that if the universe were to reach perfect state of balance, all motion would stop and there would be no existence. So there has to be this imbalance and a constant striving for the balance, for all things to exist and remain in motion. And this also reflects self and others and trying to balance between, your inside, your emotions with other people externally. So the internal, the external balance going on. And apples also appear like they're floating in the air, like there's something very mystical about them when you just see them in the tree as they're hanging. And the roundness too of the apple is like the sun. So, although there are some that are pentagonal shaped, but on the whole, apples are basically round. And so, yeah, so I'll just move on here. And I did something um, that was just kind of fun. I did a little extra research on, is there uh, an animal or some kind of life form that represents or could represent Libra. So when I was looking around, I found the dog who likes to please others, likes things to be fair, likes to share, um, also is friendly and social and likes companionship. So the dog was a definite animal that could be associated with Libra. And then some others that I came across were the gray wolf, the raven, the crow, the owl. There's a rabbit, dove, and the swan, with peace and harmony and all of that. So yeah, I thought that was kind of cute. And this little guy with his ball is really adorable. So moving on. So this is the um, next aspect in the full phase still. So it still has some Libra essence happening. And the key word here, oh, this is the quincunx or the inconjunct. The key word here is adjustment or analysis and also fear. And this is the inner to the external relations going on. So there's um, there's a lot of adjustment happening with this aspect and at this time of year, adjustment within to the external forces in the environment. And that can be the light, the decreasing of light, the changing weather. And then there's also the shifting from, this powerfulness to powerlessness as the tree's apples start to fall from the tree. So, they're hanging on and they're out there shining, trying to show their power, but yet there's this powerless, this loss that's occurring in nature as well. And so this is reflection of the elimination of fruit around this time. And again, this is also the clause of the scorpion, the duality happening where, and it's fixed, where there's this tendency to want to hang on. So um, gravitational forces pulling down while the tree's trying to hang on to the apple. And moving on to the next one. So I'm coming into the next phase, which is a gateway, transitional gateway, and it's the dissemination phase here. So the key words are frustration and resistance. And this is very Scorpio. We're in the middle of the Scorpio sign at around 15 to 16 degrees. And this is a very, very powerful time. Also, the sesquisquadrate. And with this aspect, there are these electrical impulses that happen in apples, which create a resistance, and they can be measured within the apple to show its firmness through pressure test values, and non-destructive assessments, because you don't want to damage the apple, but you still want to kind of measure, does this resistance even take place in apples? And also there's laser-induced plasma shock waves. And then there's non-contact vibrational tests as well that show the electrical impulses and, this resistance stuff. And then you go to the grocery store and you pick up an apple, you feel it, like, is it mushy or is it firm? Is it bruised and all that? So there's also this energetic life and beauty of the fall or autumn that's sinking into the soil. And you're thinking, like, where did it all go? We were just in Libra and it was all these beautiful colors of rusts and um, yellows and burgundies that, we just saw. And now you're like, where's it all gone? Well, it's all falling down on the ground, and then also because it's Scorpio, it's going into the ground. So the energy is all still there, but you can't really see it. And Scorpio is very much like that. There's this, it actually not being able to see right there clearly. Um, this builds on Scorpio's intensity. So it really pokes at the insecurities occurring. And yeah, so, Scorpio likes to see, but not be seen. It likes to expose, but reveal, but not be exposed or revealed. It likes to remain hidden. So the only time it wants to expose is when it's got that light or the truth. But otherwise, its preference is to remain kind of hidden, like the scorpion in the darkness. And overripe fruit, sometimes, like these apples, they get overripe while they're still on the stem and they fall to the ground and they continue to decay. And Scorpio is also this decaying process that's going on. And if they're not eaten by the animals, then they soon become food for insects or microorganisms. And, you know, continuing to penetrate into the soil and they nourish the soil. So, yeah, I'm just going to move on now. Um, so the glyph, and looking at there's the animal, the or life form, the scorpion, and then we've got the glyph here, which is that M symbol with the arrow pointing either upward or outward. It basically pointing the way out of the darkness. And, we've got the poison here as well, which represents the transformation going on. And then the roots. And again, like this M symbol, as in Virgo, the winding up and down. So for Scorpio, it's representing the root systems and more about the bowels rather than the intestines, as in Virgo. And so again, this shows the heights of illumination and wisdom and light moving down into the depths of darkness, desires, and the shadow self, and then going back up again. And the arrow uh, points the way out towards the sun. Uh, what was I going to say here? Oh, yes, points the way out of that darkness. And with the root systems, They're always going deeper into the soil, into the womb of Mother Nature, the core. And um, with Scorpio too, it's an elimination archetype. Virgo is as well, to eliminate, but to separate and eliminate. Whereas Scorpio is just a complete elimination of all the poisons and toxins. And if you are to keep them or hang on to them, or say the apples to hang on to, all of that decaying, it becomes a rotted apple and it's poisonous. It's going to make you sick. So, same thing goes with Scorpio. You want to eliminate all the toxins and poisons. And the last quarter trine, so here showing in nature, um, the key word here is social conditioning. It's also um, Sagittarius. And it's actually the beginning of Sagittarius, but it's still part of the disseminating phase. And so here the tree, you can see at this point it's expanded beyond its apples. Um, so the tree's true destined meaning arrives, which is its wisdom, its genetic design, which is being spread or disseminated through its seeds. And this is like a final step in this tree going outward, broadcasting itself outward. And this is also the mother of all trines. So the tree's knowledge of its evolutionary journey so far, it contains everything. Got the seeds, it's gone to the into the flowering buds, to the apple buds, to the apples themselves, and then now to the spreading of its seeds, which is the wisdom and true nature of the apple tree. So yeah, okay. And then let's look at the glyph here. I love this quote. An arrow must be pulled back in order to be launched forward. So in looking at this Sagittarius glyph, um, you can see also, well, I'll talk about the quote. The quote is interesting because you have to go back and get that wound, heal that, like to get to that wound, you have to go backwards so that you can heal it and move on to the brighter days forward. And so that's basically what that quote is about. And he's an author of The Alchemist novel. And yeah, which is kind of like the spiritual processes of nature, life, humanity. So yeah, the leaf here, this is a marmosant leaf, and you see it's dried out and withering, and these are the leaves around the fall and November, December time, and all through winter that are quite stubborn. They don't always fall to the ground, and no matter how fierce the wind, the rain, or the snow can be, um, sometimes they do detach, and when they do, they've got like this sharp point on them. And I also put the glyph here representing the point, and they can actually scratch you or irritate your skin. So also when they detach, because they're so light and frail, they don't have that, as in spring and summer, the dewy green heaviness of the moisture contained in them. That's all gone. So instead, they kind of like fly off, or they soar off, and then they kind of twirl around. And so that kind of also emphasizes the arrow here in Sagittarius with the bow and arrow. Another thing about this glyph here is that, um, in the sky, in the universe, the constellation, we've got the centaur pointing the arrow backward. And so what it's doing is it's pointing its arrow at the heart of the constellation of Scorpius, representing that reddish star, Antares, being the true position of the arrow and not just the forward one. Like sometimes you see in glyphs, the centaur is riding forward and he's shooting it forward. He's pointing the way forward, yes, but the true form of this um, Sagittarius glyph is turning around, pointing it backward at Scorpius, basically all the pain and suffering that Scorpius caused. And Sag is pointing it to the wound to heal all of that pain and suffering. So when you come out of the deep, dark depths of Scorpio, you've been traumatized, you're wounded, and you need all this healing. Well, that's what Sag, the next archetype, is all about. And it brings that hope, that optimism, and that joy along the way. And then lastly is the bow and arrow too. You can see like the bows are made out of wood. Well, today they might be a little bit more processed. It's a good word for it. Made out of steel or aluminum. But you can make bows out of different kinds of wood like oak, elm, elm tree, willow tree. But also, I found online fruit trees, as in the apple tree. There was also the crab apple tree, and then I think the holly tree too makes a good bow. So yeah, so you can kind of see the reflection going on, in nature with the glyphs. So I move on here. So now I'm getting to the planets, Pluto and Venus, and I love this quote. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there's any reaction, both are transformed. And that's basically Pluto and Venus going on in a relationship with two people or two personalities. And so I got these two little lovebirds here that are really cute. Just go to the next slide here. So we've got full phase, and the two aspects are the opposition and the conjunct or the quincunx. So here's the opposition, and here's the quincunx or the inconjunct. And then there, I'm going to talk about the disseminating phase, which is the sesquisquadrate, and that's this square with this kind of like a um, half a, with a triangle or an arrow here. And this is, again, it's in the middle of Scorpio, so it's around 15 degrees Scorpio. And then the disseminating trine, which is the start of Sagittarius, the ninth house. So just go to my notes now. And I've got quite a bit here to say about these aspects. With the full and the phases. So with the full phase, Libra is basically an extension of another person's reality through themes of projection or like outpouring. And when we project ourselves onto someone, it often comes back to us bringing awareness about awareness that's being manifested. And the projection, when it's a bad reflection back to us, it's usually from a place of darkness or shadow self or unconscious self, and it's of something that's been repressed and it needs illumination or to be balanced so that the soul can feel or become whole again. And so when Goddess Venus meets up with Pluto, Lord of the underworld, there's this lightness and darkness there. And it's very potent, powerful, and wild. And I see this phase as like Libra being drunk on love and Scorpio, the emotional hangover. And I don't know if you guys ever heard of this song. I was just kind of Googling along and I came across Diana Ross's song called Love Hangover. And I checked the lyrics out and I listened to it and I thought, oh, wow, like this speaks really well to the eroticism of these two planets interacting and also shows the pain and suffering of being in love too. So with the opposition, there's going to be uh, this is going to bring deep fears and insecurities of what's hidden. And again, nothing ever remains repressed. Um, all things rise in consciousness, and we're looking at the element of air here with the Libra archetype, so it's bound to rise. And Venus opposite Pluto can bring extreme behaviors of emotions, anything from denial, codependencies, desires of wanting time alone versus time together, jealousies, controlling or dominating others, manipulations, but going behind people's backs, like betrayals, losses, and abandonments. And then there's a lot of intensity and do or die energy that becomes this nuclear explosion or meltdown. And it can result in power struggles and confrontations with others, um, making you face your own limitations in yourself or limitations within the relationship, which again brings a lot of pain and suffering. So these could be anything about learning lessons and boundaries, listening to others, valuing others, seeing each other equally, etc. There's so many, and this brings it forces us to bring these issues into our awareness and to face these limitations within us. So there's a tremendous amount of tension that needs to be balanced as well. But often what happens with the opposition is there's this, this tendency for Pluto and Libra to swing back and forth. And when that happens, you're getting this, it's either all of Venus stuff or it's all of Pluto stuff. And so it's really, really difficult to balance and hold the tension between the two. And but this also gives the opportunity for a rebirth in the relationship, to have a breakthrough, to eliminate all the toxins and poisons in the relationship or each other, so that something new in the relationship can be created, giving a rebirth to it and resulting in transformation. So, an example is you could be out having drinks with your partner, and someone flirts with your partner, and your partner smiles back. And this triggers you, and suddenly you're involved in a heated argument, that your partner's possibly cheating, and even with this person. So this can bring out the heavy emotions and confrontations that are trying to bring your attention to an issue within you of possible jealousy or possessiveness or needing to control the other person, possibly. Um, and these are coming likely from the unconscious fear of having been betrayed in the past. So those past dynamic patterns that have been going on, so this gets exposed and eliminated, even though there is no betrayal or even a thought of it. But you may end up putting these rosy glasses on just to keep the peace in the relationship, saying, I'm fine. And really, you're not fine. And then if you don't bring yourself into further awareness of it and accept it, it's going to sink back down deep into your soul and remain buried until it gets triggered again, at which point the confrontation is going to be more powerful, more intense. And so you can keep repressing it, saying all is fine, denying it, and go through this several times. And not until you've gone as low as you can with it, like you're throwing the wine bottle at your partner or smashing it on the table in a public place, in a restaurant. And uh, Pluto is like this. There's no bottom. There is no ground zero. It's just this bottomless pit. And you keep falling and falling. And again, until you get to the moment of, okay, I can't take this anymore. And, you know, it's time to get out of Dodge and go the other way, towards the arrow as it points in Scorpio glyph towards the light, for good and all, and not go back. And so Libra, seventh house, is also known as the house of enemies. And sometimes we may think we found our true, perfect, ultimate other, but that partner can easily turn into our enemy. And so, in some of these situations, the actual enemy is oneself. not necessarily the other person too. So the seventh house, it just brings illumination to your inner demons. And there's also this thing with Libra and Venus having to do with self values and self worth, and if and how that all of that's functioning in the relationships. And we evolve through our emotional body, but also through relationships too. We need them. We need that mirroring back, that reflection from the other person, so that at the end of the day, you kind of realize that relationships are more about ourselves, learning ourselves rather than the other person. And there's also this natural inconjunct between Pisces and Libra, also between Taurus and Libra. And then there's that sextile between Pisces and Taurus. And what this means is it's about having a good relationship with oneself first before you can have a good relationship with someone else. You need to love yourself first before you can truly love the other person. And Libra struggles with this because they're often putting the other person and the other person's needs first before their own. So, but to get to that unconditional love for another, you have to love yourself and put yourself first. So finally, there's also a need to show up in a relationship with the seventh house archetype in Libra. And when you take on those seventh house cusp sign, the traits, which are opposite to your ascendant too, you begin to heal the parts of yourself that have been missing. And when you attempt to master them, or maybe even some of them you can master if you're lucky, you can begin to attract the right people to you. So the seventh is actually more about our true inner nature as we get older as well than the first house, the ascendant. And the first house is just where we've sprung from the divine. Um, it's like Aries, it's acting on impulse and instinct, whereas and hasn't formed a self identity yet and hasn't shaped or formed itself yet. Whereas the seventh house, we've been through all the lower half archetypes of the zodiac. And so we do have some kind of form going on. And now it's more about learning inside of ourselves and how we're playing on an external field or more of an objective field. So yeah, I'm going to move on to the next aspect. And that's this, actually, it's the next phase too. Oh, no, sorry, the aspect. I didn't do the in conjunct or quincunx, so I'll just quickly run through that too. So the first one, which was in the sixth house, or it was Virgo, was more about internalization, inner confrontations, inner adjustments. This one's more about responding to the external content, such as making adjustments or manifesting it outward, rather than adjusting to it internally or adjusting to it outwardly, as in your relationships. So I think with the opposition, it shows the problem through awareness, but this aspect helps break things down even more that haven't been resolved in the opposition. So to further analyze the issues still affecting each other in the relationship, to then adjust oneself accordingly from the external content of the relationship of what's not working in order for it to transform those shadow elements, giving it a way forward. So basically, this um, they can create fear, fear of disappointment of each other or the relationship, not being what you thought, and also having doubts about each other, the relationship. And often these issues, they come from a lack of validating our own self values or self worth, and also having weak boundaries, which are those lessons of the seventh house. And an example here could be, again, being at the restaurant and your partner orders your meal for you and denies what you want to eat. And even when you speak up your preference of food or what you want to order, showing a part of your unique identity to the other person, it's ignored and rejected. And so you're being forced to eat what's been ordered. So there's this self-limiting situation and friction, of course. And um, you're hungry though, and are you going to eat what your partner ordered or not eat at all? Are you going to eat and stay quiet and silent, not bother doing anything about this? Or are you going to get up and walk away? And so there's this inner analysis of the relationship of yourself and the other person taking place. There's self examination. There's an adjustment going on inside between also both parties if you start to have a bit of a debate about it. And it's all about these differing viewpoints and opinions that both people didn't know about much in the beginning. And in this case, the food. Um, it's not even really about the food, though. The true issue here is more about one partner controlling the other. And so that's what I see this aspect a lot about. And so the questions that you can ask yourself are whether the relationship is fulfilling your needs. Are they being met? Are both parties treating each other equally and with respect? Are you both being honest to each other with your unique identities, who you really are, because this can really tear a relationship apart. And are they you know, being shown outside the usual societal norms, and are they being accepted and respected? So, yeah, I'm just going to move on to the next phase here. So, we have now the disseminating phase, which it begins halfway through Scorpio, around 15 degrees with the Sesquisquadrate, and then we'll move on to the disseminating trine. So this is very Scorpio, even though it's part of the disseminating phase. It's still got a lot of Scorpio being worked out here. And with this disseminating phase, this is the open arena of the relationship, operating from societal conditioning, and there can be friction, power struggles, especially if both parties have different belief systems, different self values, and just don't see the whole world the same way. So there could be difficulties here that they challenge the relationship's growth or each other's. And there's this philosophy that happens, which is kind of on the sage side, but it's my way. It's also overpowering somebody. It's my way or the highway philosophy that can take place in a relationship. So, in looking at the Siska Squadre, I didn't find a lot. So, I'm going to guess through some of this stuff. Um, anyway, the first Siska Squadre was more about inner criticisms of others, but not really expressing them and instead just putting up with them. So here there's an interplay between what's needed in the relationship versus what's desired. So there could be a dissatisfaction and unfulfillment in the relationship and how it's viewed or with the partners, which creates a frustration. And there's resistance that comes up here too with this aspect. So it's difficult to control the emotions as to the needs and desires of both parties in the relationship. Um, so one may be trying to integrate the social norms and customs, traditions, what everybody's doing, what the Joneses are doing, what society dictates, and versus another one might be trying to search for their own belief systems to be established within the relationship. And then, you're looking at what kind of relationship do you want? Do you want a highly sexualized one? Do you want one where you stay home a lot? Do you want a family or travel the world? And if it doesn't suit both people very well, then like their desires and their needs, then one partner or even both, but one is more likely to begin to withdraw and pull away. And this will create the power struggles going on, which is like halfway through Scorpio. It's getting really intense now. And there's this tug of war and confrontations that are happening that really push each other's limits. And so this can create a lot of transformative chaos, but also new discoveries and growth within the relationship together. An example could be where one person desires the relationship to be like they're this adventurous couple who are the great explorers of the world, driving around in a sporty Jeep. And, one partner is not really into it, but, you know, kind of goes along with it because they like that person. And so they both do the climbing the mountains together, traveling through the Amazon. They do zip lining, African safari, skydive, riding motorcycles, the works. And they begin to discover that their desires and needs are quite different. So there's a big problem here. They both like each other, but they're not at all like each other. And it's kind of reflective of the opposition stuff, but we're looking at more about what the needs and desires are for the relationship here with this aspect. So, in order to embrace these differing qualities of desires and needs in each person, the couple would likely have to learn to compromise, have to learn to accept each other's differences, and also try to find a way through them so that the relationship can still grow. And so, in this sense, this brings new discoveries and truths about each other or the relationship, and it can seriously alter the relationship's path, either negatively or positively, depending on how it's dealt with. So there's a lot of pushing through resistance with this aspect, having the confrontations and reaching each other's limits just to get to the deeper truths of who each other really are to one another and also what kind of relationship both people are searching or hoping for. And I think that this going through these processes also starts to illuminate a higher meaning to one another and also a higher meaning of the relationship too. So I'm just going to move on now to, I think this is the last aspect in this phase. It's the disseminating trine, and this is the beginning 0 degrees of Sagittarius and also the ninth house. Um, so here, we've gone through the first quarter trine in the second phase, part two, which I did, where there was this fullness of the relationship. There was joy and easy flow to it, but also some fears and insecurities. Here, with the disseminating trine, there's the excitement and fears that you had previously. They've settled down with this aspect. The couple has actually figured out and learned much about each other and the relationship along the way, creating a freedom within the relationship. And this kind of a relationship, having this trine, can also show outwardly going on long journeys and traveling together and different cultures to experience each other in different ways, adding new elements to and insights to the relationship, which also help it grow. And with this aspect, there's also likely a deep psychic connection as well, where they're very much in tune with one another and just have this knowing of the other person, where they're coming from, knowing what they need or feel or desire. It's all very strong intuition here without having to discuss it. And so that they're able to be there for each other on a deeper and more intuitive level. And there's also likely a higher level of faith and trust in one another and the relationship as well. And they can still be obsessed with one another and have all of that passion and intensity, but it's without the heaviness and the darkness there. So there's a lot of deep love for each other with this aspect and the relationship, and it's got this brighter and lighter, bouncier energy to it. So again, this is the mother of all trines. It's like a blessed aspect to have. The couple is able to explore each other and their relationship without any blockages and fears. And they're also able to grow individually and independently together. And they're able to teach one another differing beliefs, values, opinions, cultures previously experienced while respecting them and giving them a spotlight and also not probably no longer feeling threatened or challenged by one another's unique individuality. And there's also likely a desire still for the relationship to continue to grow and expand on a more societal platform where they can search and develop higher meaning of each other in the relationship. And then an example of this disseminating trine, I could see it as a couple where they've been together for a long time, or even if they've just met, they've had maybe past lives together. And it's the love, the deep love and connections there, but it's not just that deep love that they have for one another, but there's this element of care um, that they both share and feel for one another that's deepened and has a higher priority to one another and the relationship since their early years, giving their relationship higher meaning, higher value, and a deeper depth to it. So yeah, this trine is really a blessing. And of course, you're still going to have challenges with Pluto and Venus interacting together. But I think that this aspect is a much easier and more joyful ride than some of the other aspects that we've been talking about. So, so I just want to take a moment here to um, thank you all for your time and being here. Much appreciate it. And much gratitude again to Sue and Robin and the EA Zoom meeting team for this wonderful invitation and for all of their help in manifesting my presentation. And a lot of thank yous too to my teachers, other evolutionary astrologers and astrologers out there. And special thanks again to Darren Turpin for all of his kindness and these photos and in showing me a little bit of extra information about the apple tree and the apples. So I also want to put this slide up again. Here are some schools if you're interested in evolutionary astrology or even just astrology generally. I mean, this stuff gives you really deep information, deep it's just filled with all kinds of depth. So I recommend these schools. And then here are some books too that if you're interested in reading. And then of course the EA channel. Um, you can get a lot of tons of information from that channel. So yeah, this is it. Thank you again so much. It's been a pleasure. I'll be presenting part three. I don't know, probably soon. I hope maybe in the next couple of weeks. And I hope you found a lot of this information helpful. And if you have any questions or comments, just feel free to reach out. Here's my contact information. And yeah, thank you so much. Peace and love to you all. Wishing you all the best.
Joanne, that was awesome. I I can't convey what how much I got out of this. It's just it's just been beautiful.
Thank you so much.
I love how you tie in all of the synchronicity in nature. and how, to all life in nature
Thank you.
and
Right,
in
yeah,
detail.
yeah, and how I was noticing how it also not only does it apply to, um, the aspects, but it also, kind of moves out and applies to the degrees of the planets as well. You know, you can, yeah, it's just, you definitely opened up all kinds of, areas of further, research.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Yeah, and we definitely look forward to part 4, sorry,
For
Part 4, the 4th quadrant, which is winter.
exactly. And, yeah, so thank you again, and we will see you next time.
See you soon. Thank you. Take
Thank
care.
you.
You too.